Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined daily by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Be sure to tell us where you're checking in from this morning. Tell us what you're drinking. Get your questions in. We're going to get to all those in just a little bit. It's also 75 days away from kickoff in Columbus, guys. That's hard to believe. So tell us who your favorite number 75 is as well. We can revisit that here in a little bit. But first, let's back up a little bit. Big recruiting weekend for the Longhorns. That's the hot topic, obviously. Jerry, what's the latest there?
Yeah, we'd said going into this weekend that it would be a little different than last weekend because a lot of these kids already have commitment dates who are coming in this weekend or thinking first week in July. So I'm going to go through each guy. But before that, I'll tell you this. Who's got dates already set? Jalen Lott's July 4th. Hezzy Kent's July 12th. Ojo's expected early July. Crimpin the same. Simeon the same. Bryce Perry Wright has a July 4th date. Xavier Griffin's June 29. Braden Rouse is expected early July. Samari Matthews currently has August 10th, I believe. So a lot of these kids already have predetermined dates right now. We'll see if anybody moves off a date, but a lot of these guys have one visit left. So this weekend was a little different. Now, I did drop a couple of highs. That doesn't mean all these guys are coming out today or tomorrow or Wednesday. So just know that Texas had a successful weekend. Now I'll just go down these guys one by one and throw your questions and we'll take those as we move along. Jalen Lott, I think Texas did a great job this weekend. Goes to Oregon June 20th. Texas did a great job last weekend. Goes to Oregon this weekend. USC was the weekend prior, June 6th. He's also visited LSU. But I've always maintained this will come down to Texas versus one of those two West Coast schools. We'll see which one that is. But I think Texas did a great job there. I think there was even some conversations about high jump, right, in the college level. Sam Roseborough, my prevailing thought is, and it's just been the same, is all these guys that are leaning to Texas, whether that is Roseborough or Crimpin or those guys, I don't think all these guys end up in the class. So who's going to how the dominoes going to fall? This is what a lot of this comes down to. How are these dominoes going to fall? There's the NIL component too. There's also who's done with visits and maybe closer to a decision versus people still going on visits. How this process is going to play out with those two things, I think are going to determine how this offensive line class finishes up. Felix Ojo, he canceled Oklahoma last weekend. I'm hearing he may take a visit somewhere else this weekend, but I think Texas did well with him. I think they had a really good weekend with all these guys. But look, Ojo, I think he'll make his July announcement unless he changes something. He hadn't even put out an announcement date, but I think Texas continues to do well there. Damari Simeon is one of the more intriguing recruits for me. Big academic recruitment, which is kind of, not something we talked about a lot prior to the last couple of weeks. Texas and Michigan, I think from an academic perspective, very, very popular with the family. Ohio State's where he's visiting this weekend. Barring a change, I don't think it's Penn State. So Texas, Michigan, Ohio State, I think he's had two tremendous visits to Texas. I think the mom being a part of it this weekend, which she wasn't on the unofficial, helps Texas, but we'll see which way it goes. Vodney Cleveland, we've been saying if this is a out-of-state trender, it could very well come down to Texas versus Florida. I think Texas did a great job there this weekend. He has Miami on the schedule coming up June 20th. I think he's also been to Carolina. But if barring a major change, I think if this maintains out-of-state, Texas or Florida, and I think Texas has a little mo. Bryce Perry Wright is going to be at A&M this weekend, July 4th announcement. He had more family members with him than any other recruit did this weekend. I think that one's could go a number of ways. I mean, Texas is right there in it. Texas, Clemson, A&M. I wouldn't even rule out Miami necessarily. Dre Quinn canceled the Notre Dame visit coming up for June 20th. I expect him to put something out that's more Texas, Clemson, Georgia-ish if he releases a top three or something like that. Right now, I think Texas or Clemson's where that will come down to. Jake Krull was on campus. Obviously, has a family member of three that attended Florida. He's got Oklahoma this weekend. Xavier Griffin announces June 29th. Texas There's confidence on the Texas side, some confidence on the Alabama side. Isn't that fun? This is what we come down to in recruiting. Also visit Ohio State. He has FSU this weekend, but I think Texas did a really good job there. He got to spend a lot of time with Johnny Nansen this weekend from a linebacker perspective because he had spent a lot of time through the in-home visit process with Alan Clark and Kenny Baker. Kenny Baker kind of the spearhead of all the recruitments in that Atlanta area. And then Samari Matthews down there on the bottom. Texas, again, he had a number of family members with him that flew in from Charlotte. He goes to South Carolina this weekend. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot there. Miami made the big move replacing Clemson. Then Braden Rouse, I think, has a Tennessee lean over Texas with Alabama in it and Michigan fourth. He goes to Tennessee this weekend. But Texas made up some ground this weekend. They've had him on campus now twice, but can they overcome Tennessee recruiting him for 2 years is going to be the question.
Great breakdown, Jerry. If you have any questions about recruiting, make sure Jerry gets them. You and CJ out at the airport this weekend. Jerry, look, the reality of it is Texas at 13 commitments currently. Last weekend, there were what I called a barrage of commitments. There were 5 in 3 days. A little bit different this go round, although you did say, if I'm reading between the lines, you said there were 2 highs over the weekend that the weekend produced. Any overall general thoughts on the weekend as a whole? I mean, was it a good weekend? Was this one of those weekends where maybe you started separating the wheat from the chaff? Like you tried to figure out who was who in this recruiting class? Because it sounds that way, maybe on the offensive line, just different places.
Yeah, I think all these this weekend are national battles is the difference. I mean, these are real national recruitment. So there's a lot of different messaging. It could be, hey, one kid comes in and say, hey, Texas is where I want to be, but this school over here is telling me I'm going to play 25, 30 snaps as a freshman. Then Texas, may not be able to give that same message. Or maybe it's an NIL major difference. Somebody's gone big on the NIL part of the recruitment. So it's kind of, these are all national battles this weekend. I mean, some of the top prospects in the country. I mean, the 5 guys in from Georgia are all 5 of the top prospects in America. I mean, and when I say America, I'm not talking top 30 guys, but I'm talking like top 100 level guys in the country. These are all recruitments. I didn't even mention Hezzy Kent. Texas had a really good visit with Hezzy Kent. I think Florida's very much in that one as well. He's got Georgia Tech and FSU this week. He's also visited Miami. But these are all national recruitments. I mean, and you're getting down to Texas battling Clemson, Texas battling Georgia, Texas battling Florida, Texas battling Michigan, right? I mean, that's where this is at.
It ain't Baylor and Oklahoma State.
Yeah, no. These are real deal recruitments. They're not meant to be easy, and they're going to play out a little longer, especially publicly. And I think this was more positioning weekend and also kind of figuring out in some instances where the NIL part of this is going on some of these recruitments.
Well, we got a lot of recruiting questions, but before we get to those, then some other stuff this morning. Bobby, tell us about Longhorn Wealth Management.
Yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsor, John Donovan, president of Longhorn Wealth Management Group. John's a proud Texas Ex's Life member. He's already on the chat line today. I saw his little chat he put up earlier, whose wife and 6 siblings are also UT grads. It's his family passion for UT that led John to brand the firm Longhorn Wealth Management. He dedicates it to providing investment, retirement, insurance, and estate planning services and solutions to Longhorn families and friends across the nation. He's done so for more than 30 years. While it literally came down to just a difference of 1.5 points this weekend, UT won the Directors' Cup for the 4th time in the last 5 years. Congratulations there, guys. John's proud of our AD, Chris Del Conte, and all our great UT coaches and fantastic student athletes for this wonderful accomplishment. John wants to offer all OTF fans the opportunity to take advantage of a free 90-minute private consultation with John to learn how working with a certified financial planner can help you maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy. Call John and the Longhorn Wealth Team, 972-707-4900, or go online at longhornwealth.net to schedule your free 90-minute private consultation with John to build, manage, and secure your financial future. That's John Donovan and his group over at Longhorn Wealth Management.
Thank you, Bobby. And going back to recruiting for just a moment, we have a super chat here from Joshy Manning. Thank you, Joshy. He says, Jerry, if you were to give a top 3 of most successful visits, who do you think those guys would be?
You're trying to trick me into a question. But I think Texas did well with Jalen Lott when they had to this weekend. And I'm not saying – I'm saying there's still a long way to go in these recruitments. A long way, man, 3 weeks. I think they did well there. I think they did well with a couple of Georgia guys and a couple of the other out-of-state guys.
He's not giving it up. You're not giving the juice to the folks right now. Jerry, you have to do that in order to keep your own sources, by the way. So hope everybody understands that.
All right. Well, one of the other big news items of the weekend, fellas, is the Directors' Cup. And it was very, very close, to put it lightly. But Texas comes away with it, Bobby.
I tell you what, I was texting with Dr. Brett Wilkinson on all day Saturday afternoon, basically. Texas won this thing by 1.5 points. Stanford made a late run at this because their men's track and field team was doing so well, and then their women's track and field team started doing really, really well. If Stanford would have finished 1 place higher, or excuse me, 2 places higher, they would have potentially won the Directors' Cup instead of Texas. That's how close this was. And furthermore, during the 5,000-meter race, which was the second to last race in the entire women's track and field piece, Stanford filed a objection. Almost got pushed to second instead of third. If that objection would have actually worked, Stanford would be winning the Directors' Cup instead of Texas. USC made a late run as well, but Texas women's track held it off. They finished in 10th place despite getting a young woman disqualified in the hurdles.
Which would have been a point getter, right?
It would have been a big point getter for Texas. So, look, Texas, I don't want to say limped to the finish line, but that's kind of what it felt like with the men's track team finishing 34th, women finishing 10th. But the women is about standard where they thought they would finish, men well below it. And then baseball, obviously, losing that regional instead of going to the super regionals hurt a little bit. But at the same time, Longhorns win their 4th of 5 Directors' Cups. I spoke briefly with Chris Del Conte yesterday, the Texas athletic director, and we were just chit-chatting about some stuff. And I actually asked him, I go, so congratulations, what's next? And his answer was, gotta keep chopping wood, is what he said. Got to keep going and push forward. And basically nothing changed with this win in the Directors' Cup. It's just a reward for battles hard fought. Now he just wants to keep going forward and keep Texas the best athletic program in the country.
I'll just state the obvious. I'm glad it didn't come down to a 40-yard field goal from the right hash. Too soon? Too soon? Is it too soon for this?
Wow.
Is it too soon, chat, or is that
no?
Okay?
That's not too soon because everybody is shaking their head. Yes, I agree. Glad it didn't come down to a 40-yard field goal from the right hash.
Oh man,
that's a good one, Jerry Hamilton.
It's too a lot of the too soon crowds jumping in. Sorry, I don't know why that was my thought, but it was.
Hey, Dr. Brett Wilkinson did that, covered that for not just us, for the whole country, and did a tremendous job. He is a Longhorn, graduated from Texas undergrad, and is from the city of Beaumont, now a doctor in the New Orleans area. Appreciate him being a part of On Texas Football and what he does for Directors' Cup updates.
Okay, let's see here. We had a comment that I wanted to bring. Oh, from Victor. How cool of Art Simmons, etc., to show up in St. Louis for Wingfield Camp. And Jerry, I heard you talking about this last night, apparently. I'm going to bring up a couple of pictures here. We'll start with what
for those that weren't on those that weren't on the live stream last night, the guy in the middle is Blake Monroe. That was our joke last night. But yeah, so Arch Manning was up there at the camp with Nick Brooks, I believe. DeAndre Moore was up there, Bobby. Along with there's Nick Brooks in a photo there, DeAndre Moore, Jamison Williams, obviously St. Louis native. his injury gave Kirby his first national championship, if there's a Dogs fan in here. But NFL receiver Jamison Williams from the area right there with Arch and Ryan Wingo. So really cool for some of the Texas guys to go up there and support Ryan in his camp in the St. Louis area.
Yeah, we saw a bunch of photos. Ryan Wingo doing the good thing. 500 kids pre-registered for the event, and these are not older kids. These are all younger kids. I mentioned it last night. I just think it's great when they give back to the communities they're from. Leonga Lafau last year did the same thing in Hawaii. I thought that was tremendous. So it's good stuff. This weekend, Peter Pogge's camp is coming up in the Austin area as well. If you have a young son that wants to get involved in that, please do so.
Okay, we got some more super chats coming in this morning, and let's see here. We got a couple of recruiting ones, so we're going to jump back over to that. Splendid Daddy, formerly Sugar Daddy. Thank you for the super chat. Wilt Fong recently said A&M is his current favorite to be the #1 class. What are y'all's thoughts on that?
I don't know what to say. Look, Lamar Brown, in full disclosure, Lamar Brown visited A&M over the weekend. He has canceled his LSU visit. He is one of the nation's top prospects. He's out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He visited Texas the week before. It does sound to me, and I know Jerry feels the same, it feels like it's leaning A&M's way right now in that regard. And then I would also add that, we'll see. I don't think they're the favorite for the #1 class, but I'm not going to.
I'm not picking
a lot of road to hoe before they would end up with the #1 class. I'm
not picking on anybody, but I think he said that about multiple classes potentially being #1. So it's that time of year. And look, some of these recruitments are going to go out into the season, no matter where these kids commit. Just something to remember.
And then one other super chat from Jay Lee says the Friend Squares Lee is going to Georgia. Your thoughts, Jerry?
Well, you talk about Malachi Lee, and that's the only school that Malachi Lee was there unofficially this week, and he'd already made an official early in April. It's the only school he's been to twice, not on the West Coast. So we'll see if that has meaning. He goes to Michigan this weekend. I think it'll be interesting to see which way that goes. But with Jackson Cantwell, when he committed to Miami over Georgia, that really made Malachi Lee the #1 guy for Georgia. So to Jay Lee's friend's point that Georgia is all in on that recruitment. And by the way, Texas, Michigan, all of them would love to have Malachi Lee. He's a stud, underrated.
He's racking up the frequent flyer points, though.
Yeah.
Honolulu to Georgia.
And it's not just him. It's a bunch of family members.
Yeah, that's a lot of frequent flyer miles.
Yeah.
And then we got some questions regarding Jalen Lott. I know you talked about him a moment ago. I'm going to put his highlights up while we answer those questions here. And Jerry's Jack Link said Lott and his family looked miserable in their visit photos, which makes the skeptic in me think he may committed. Throwing the scent off the trail, positive vibes only.
The old backwards intel there.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jerry?
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think, I think Texas is recruiting him as a wide receiver only. There was discussions about high jump. I think Texas had a good weekend with Jalen Lott, and a lot of this comes down to the final conversations. I mean, if USC put a Mark Bowman deal on the table, then you might not get a kid. So we'll have to see where it goes. But I think Texas had a really good weekend with Jalen Lott.
And then following up on Lott, David Parcell says, do you think that Lott is the biggest must get?
I love him as a player. It's hard for me to put a wide receiver as a must get unless he's, like Bobby, who's the total freaks, Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Smith was for Ohio State, right? I mean, that's hard for me. I like Xavier Griffin to me. Who's the guy that's going to go sack the quarterback 10 to 12 times? That's kind of my must get guys right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, one of the things here is we got to figure out, what this class looks like overall. Jerry, you and I talked about it last week, 25 to 30 guys in this class. All of a sudden, is there a one guy that you got to have if you get enough really good players? I think that Lott has something that precious few guys have,
right?
And that's separation. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw it right there. And so Steve Sarkisian knows what to do with those guys. And so could he be the must get? Maybe, but I don't want to diminish, frankly, some other wide receivers. Texas is in on a number of good wide receivers right now. So while I think that Jalen Lott is a special player, you don't want to overemphasize one guy at that position. I think the difference to your point with Xavier Griffin is he is the guy that can get after the quarterback as well or better than anybody they're recruiting.
Yes.
And that's the potential difference that I would say. I think you agree.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 to 12 sack guys a year in college football or outside of quarterback are I think the ultimate premium positions in the sport right now. The guys who can really bring it. You saw Colin Simmons win the National Freshman of the Year over Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams. And he didn't play as many snaps as those guys did.
Let me ask you this. Is that part of the issue? Is that like what I see sometimes is I see a smaller margin of difference between really good wide receivers than I do defensive players. Like after you get past the first, 5 to 10 defensive tackles, the difference between defensive tackle, down the line, and then the next one may be wider than the wide receiver group because I think they're just more common body types at wide receiver. I don't know. I think that's part of the issue as well.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And to that point, I just think if there's like real dudes that are pass rush guys off the edge, there's a bigger drop off. There's not as many of those guys. And if there's one of those high level guys, they have a ton of value. And that is the one thing that in college football is whether it's your entire front or your hybrid edge linebacker guys, which is what Xavier Griffin is. He's built more like a linebacker now. I know it's out there. He could play edge. He could play linebacker. He's 6'4", 205. He's a linebacker frame right now that I think is going to be a hybrid player. But if you look at Alabama, look at their teams. I mean, it was the Will Andersons, the Dallas Turners, and keep going back on those guys, those 250, 60-pound linebackers blitzing off the edges and along with their D-line guys. It was Clemson. Look at their D-line on their national championship teams. The quarterbacks went one. They didn't even have offensive linemen drafted on that team. Look at their pass rushers and their D-line guys. Look at Georgia, same thing. And Ohio State. I mean, even Ohio State this year. I mean, who are the dominant players game in, game out for them outside of maybe Caleb Downs was the two ends for them. I mean, what they combined for 18 sacks last year.
Talk about baseball here in a moment, but first I want to get to some supers. Let's see here. We have Jerry's Jack Links says, do you think schools pay players to skip a visit, throw $10,000 a kid's way just to stay away from a school?
Yes. I think it's happened before. Right, Jerry? I mean, it's happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it happening now? Sure.
You can't point to a specific player, though, right now. Don't do that.
No. I'm just saying it happens. I mean, for sure it happens.
All right. Our next super chat. And by the way, David Parcell said, thank you guys for answering his question. Thank you, David. Appreciate that and appreciate the question. Next one comes from Jay Lee. He says, if Brown does not go to LSU, it would seem Texas would be the obvious choice due to Clark's relationship. But how the heck does A&M become the favorite?
Long-term relationship there, right, Jerry?
A&M's been recruiting him at D-line for 2 years. We said that the last couple of weeks on the show. They've been recruiting him as a D-lineman for 2 years. They're the only school that has. A lot of schools have come around to that. But again, I think Lamar Brown's recruitment will play into his senior season. I'm not saying he's not going to commit somewhere. Don't get me wrong. He'll commit somewhere. I think his recruitment will play out into his senior season.
And then our next super chat here from Jason. Thank you, Jason. He says, do you think Texas uses these visits more to see what the NIL situation with each kid is? Texas seems to wait until the end once they know what's on the table for everyone.
What do you think? Is that a fair question in your opinion, Jerry?
I think I think that's part of it, but we were talking about it earlier. I think there's a lot of things right now in a day. Look, I just still think there's decisions being made on some kids. I mean, when you bring in what's it going to be after this weekend? Almost 50 official visitors. You're telling some kids no that may potentially want to go to Texas, and that doesn't mean they're not tremendous players, but that's the level Texas is recruiting at right now. So I think there's multitude of things that go into it. The NIL could be part of it. If somebody values somebody different than you do, and that could be 4 different schools, 2 value here, 2 value there, and then you're not going to be the one if you don't value it high, if that's what the recruitment comes down to. And there's certainly some that are. Then you have the fit component. And we talked about it last week with Cohen Brown. When Cohen Brown and his family came to Austin, he had never met Steve, sat down with Steve Sarkisian. But after Sark was around them, he was like, this guy needs to be in our program. That decision was made. Then they cancel Mason James' official visit, who was supposed to come in this weekend, and he commits to Washington. So, I mean, there's still decisions being made right now. And like we talk about offensive linemen, I'm going to be consistent with this. All these, there's maybe 4 kids that have been leaning to Texas. And I'll continue to say it's doubtful all 4 of those guys end up in the class. It's just the way the dominoes fall, maybe the NIL component, one versus the other. It's just unlikely. But that doesn't mean Texas doesn't think they're really good players.
All right, well, before we move on, guys, I'm going to let Bobby tell everyone today about Omaha Steaks.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. I actually had some this weekend, and it's Father's Day was awesome. Thanks to Omaha Steaks. Now you got to get geared up for 4th of July and grilling and chilling in the backyard. It's the peak of summer. 4th of July cookouts are a tradition. From handcrafted steaks to family grilling favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience for all of your 4th of July grilling plans. Enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and so much more. I'm telling you, we had the brisket burgers again, and they are a 10 out of a 10. Now, during their 4th of July sale, you can get 50% off site-wide at Omaha Steaks. Plus, get our listeners get an extra $45 off with promo code ONTexas at checkout. That's 50% off site-wide now at Omaha Steaks. They are moving it up and making better deals for everyone. It is convenient to have high-quality Omaha Steaks on hand. And I'll tell you what, if you want to get fired up for 4th of July, visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their 4th of July sale. And for an extra $45 off, use promo code ONTexas at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $45 off with promo code ONTexas at checkout. See site for detail. Omaha Steaks has been America's original butcher since 1917, a family-owned company with more than 100 years of experience in the industry.
I'm going to bring this one up since as we transition to something else for a few minutes. Jackson Miles, why do people automatically think if Texas is losing recruitment, it's because the other teams are throwing more money at them? I want to bring this up because I think there's sometimes kids just prefer something else, another school, right? You're not going to get all these guys. And I think there's times where one school values somebody more than another school does, or how that fits in their allotment, Bobby. I mean, that's a part of it too. I mean, I think it's a multitude of reasons, but there's definitely times where Texas NIL valued somebody and won a recruitment more than somebody else may have. And some people have done that on the flip side against Texas too. And then there's some kids like, for instance, a Naeem Burrows, a wide receiver from Bowles School, who Texas loved him. And he just, at the end of the day, he preferred Clemson closer to home. And he never made his visit to Texas. I mean, that happens too. I think it's a multitude of reasons, though. And I do think NIL is part of it sometimes, but it doesn't mean it just look. Some guys are some programs may have different slots and how they're going to value said player through an NIL perspective, and somebody else may say, no, we'll go this direction with it, and then you lose a kid that you like. But these guys know the game. That's part of the game, and sometimes you win those because you value them higher than somebody else does.
All right. Well, we got a lot of people obviously seeing the tweet I just put out. So there's good news on the way, but we can't talk about that yet, but we can talk about Texas adding a couple of players over the weekend. The first one being a big surprise because it was high school recruiting 2026. Hayes Holton, who is a pitcher out of Louisiana, committed to the Longhorns on Saturday morning. I say surprised because, as I said, high school recruiting I thought was about at a close, but the staff still looking to add elite arms. Holton, 94, 97 mile an hour fastball, also has a slider, a changeup that is really effective as well. And then they also got a commitment out of the portal from Georgia State's Caleb Freeman. And Freeman, 358 at the plate. I think he had 16 home runs. So a big bat there for Texas. And he's really a super utility guy. And the reason I say that is because he can play nearly anywhere on the field. So a couple of big ones there for the Longhorns, and more good news obviously on the way, but that's all I can say.
Hey, Blake, I got to ask you.
Yeah.
Are they looking for hitters? We had talked about this. So they're looking a lot for pitching right now in the portal. Is there a lot of pitching out there that they can go get, or is that a tough pull right now?
Yeah, there is actually, but they're being very, very selective. It's crazy because, I mean, you got a lot of these guys throwing like upper 90s and, I mean, just posting these insane numbers, but they are wanting them to be an absolute fit to a T and being very selective. So a lot of options out there. It's just Texas is only wanting what they consider to be the best of the best, the most elite people out there that fit, both on and off the field. So don't, just because they're putting up amazing stats or numbers doesn't mean that Texas is going to go after them.
Fair enough.
Yeah. We got more super chats here. This one from Justin Yarbrough, and he says, what does running back recruiting look like so far? I know we look good for KJ Edwards, but with the recruiting, does a number 2 end up a flip or a senior riser?
Right now, it's going to have to be one of those unless Texas upsets Alabama for Xavier Crowell, who announces on the June 26th he'll be at Alabama this weekend. He was at Auburn last weekend. He's already been to Georgia and Texas. KJ Edwards in this weekend. I think Texas is in a pretty good spot there. You have to go finish it off. Jay's asking about Derek Cooper. Still did not set up an OV to Texas. Will that play out into the senior season with Texas? We shall see, him or somebody else. But I think Texas will keep recruiting guys. Jackson Miles asked what happened to Latimer. Latimer and Texas just didn't kind of match. I think Latimer, he had a couple of family members that played at Miami, but Derek Cooper's number 1 for Miami. I think Wisconsin is his spot. I don't know if he's even committed yet, but that's going to be a spot, I believe. And he kind of fits up there as well as a runner. By the way, but I do think Texas, if they have that second spot, that will be a flip or senior year guy. Carson Baker, a kid that they offered in May, didn't never set him up for an OV, committed to Florida over the weekend. Oh, by the way, it's a good time to answer. Somebody asked about CJ Baxter being cleared for the season, and I that's not where CJ Baxter's at. Being cleared for the next portion of his recovery, meaning running some flare outs, doing some things like that, that is not cleared for full contact in football pads.
Let's get to some more questions here. Plenty of time to get your questions in this morning. And let's do some more recruiting. E. Kim says, do you think the 2026 offensive line class could be entirely from Texas?
Ooh, good question, given where they're at right now, Jerry.
I don't know. I think there's some stuff going on. It's just going to be how these kids. It's going to be how the dominant. Is it possible? Yes. Is it likely? It's going to depend on when a couple of kids decide they're going to commit and how that's going to change things. I want to respond to something here.
Yeah.
Josh Joe Sark told him we don't have space on Sam Roseboro. That's not true. Texas would take Sam Roseboro. Doesn't mean they're going to get him, but they would take Sam Roseboro.
And some more recruiting questions this morning, then we'll jump over to some team stuff. Let's take this one from Drew Lockhart. And he says, Jerry, is it possible we can get Drake Quinn and a Bryce Perry Wright in the same class? Same positions, different players, different frames, or maybe Quinn and Carlton?
Yeah, so Bryce Perry Wright's kind of different, right? He's more of that 5. He's like an inch shorter but bigger, wider base version of Barron Sorrell I think to some colleges. He's more of that edge 5 tech that you will see where his frame goes. I think he's a little different. Drake Quinn. Look, I think Texas did well with both of those guys, but I think their recruitments are going to come down to different things. I'll say that. Is it possible? It's possible. Is it likely? I'm not sure. I'd say it's likely.
And then a couple of people asking about recruiting class rankings here. So I'm going to group these together for you, Jerry. Coach Talk says, where do you see the class finishing at worst? And then Reckless Trey wants to know, are we trending towards being on the outside of the top 5 for the 2026 class?
I don't see that. Because, look, these recruiting class rankings don't end in August. And we said this last year. I mean, Texas added Justice Terry and Grayson Littleton and Zealous Hicks. They added a number of guys in season. Do I think Texas will sign another top 5 class as long as they sign enough of the players? Yes, I do. I can see a path to a top 3 class. A lot of that comes down to how many 5-star guys you have in the class at the end of the day. And some of those rankings don't finalize till January of senior year, and it can flip a spot or 2 in the rankings. I think Texas will be a top 5 class again when all's said and done. Maybe top 3.
Hey, Jerry, can I ask you about a couple of players from last week that visited that don't – I mean, we're so focused on the guys that just came in, but a couple guys that came in last week. Devon Benjamin, he was at Oregon this weekend. Have we heard anything out of that? That's a young man, the safety out of Oaks Christian in Westlake Village. We heard anything there?
I haven't heard anything there. He's supposed to go to Washington, I believe, this weekend, expecting an early July, mid-July decision there, but he hadn't put out a date.
Okay, and Xavier Crowell, you still think it's Alabama, Texas primarily?
I think so. He was at Auburn last weekend. He was at Georgia May 30th through June 1st. He'll be at Alabama this weekend, June 26th announcement. And that one really comes down to, are you going to stay in state or are you not?
Got it.
And look, Robert Gillespie, Coach Gillespie has one job, and that's to beat Texas and Auburn and Georgia for Xavier Crowell. That's the running back coach at Alabama.
All right, let's see here. The next question is, trying to find it here. Buster, 1958. Let's talk a little current team. Nick Townsend, 4x2 state champion, is on campus. Can you give an update on his progress? And is it a possibility he will start or even be in the rotation?
Well, that's going to come down to how much he plays, since he wasn't in for the spring, how quickly can he get up to speed on the playbook? And then technique from a blocking perspective. So those are the 2 key things. If he picks those things up, he will play. He is too fast, too talented. I saw he walked by me a couple of weeks ago on the official visit weekend, and he walked by and said, "Hey, I caught a touchdown today." That was the first thing he said. And my response was, "I am not surprised." And he looks good physically. He's one of the weird guys for me, weird in a good way. He gained 10 pounds during track season as a senior, and his times kept going down. Heaven forbid if he's a late bloomer physically, because I've already seen what he looks like if he's not.
Oh, and then let's take this one from Oury. They say, what position group do we need to see the most development for that to tie into being a successful season? Do you think it could be tight end or offensive line?
I think it's offensive line for sure, Bobby.
I think it definitely could be. Jerry, what do you think about wide receiver? Like I've been thinking about this, and while I think offensive line is a natural, I think the situation at tight end is questionable because Texas doesn't really know. They think they know what they get in jack injuries, but Spencer Shannon and Jordan Washington haven't played. The other guys are true freshmen. My thought process is wide receiver, because if they can be elite alongside Arch Manning, I think you could see some guys throw the ball around the yard a little bit. And so I think that, and then we need to see the development at defensive tackle. Who's joining Alex January? Are these guys really ready to roll? I mean, we think they are based on what they've done at other stops, but none of them have played in the SEC other than Alex January. So are they really ready? Is Murad Watson ready? Is Cole Brevard ready? I think that's a fair question. I think that's a fair question. Wide receiver to me with Moore and Wingo for sure. And then you add Emmett Mosley with Parker Livingstone. Then maybe you have a freshman come in. They need a gel. They need to be that good for Arch Manning to be that good. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to separate it in two categories. I think development's offensive line for me, as far as the players developing, the new starters coming in, getting their feet wet, playing, growing as a group to play at a high level. It's offensive line. If there's one position that I'm looking to that I think your frontline guys need to stay healthy, it's wide receiver. Because, 2 years ago, Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, Whittington were all healthy all season long. Doesn't mean you're not nicked up, but I'm saying time on field, we're healthy. Last year, that wasn't the case for Texas. They had some wide receiver injuries that impacted how good the offense actually could be towards maximization. I think this year, health is very much a key at the wide receiver spot, especially while the younger guys are developing behind them, to Bobby's point. So to me, it's health of wide receivers, offensive line. I think it's development of those guys in games this year. Because I'll say this, Texas still has 2 receivers coming back that started in the college football playoffs last year.
Yes, you're right.
And you have Emmett Mosley, who started 9 games as a freshman, who is not – it's not like a guy from Stanford's going to come in and struggle with the Texas scheme.
Let me ask you this, though. This is what I was getting at with that. Who was the go-to guy in that group? They didn't – DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley, none of those 3 were the guys on their team. Right, Jerry? I mean, frankly, the Anamayor guy at Stanford was the number 1 guy. And then obviously Matthew Golden last year was the number 1 guy. So you see what I'm saying? They need that kind of development.
Yeah.
They need to go from, hey, we're the 2 or 3 on this team to we're a 1. Yeah. That's the development. I agree with you about offensive line being which one has to take the biggest step. I agree with that.
Our next question this morning is going to come from Hioli Frioli 93, and they ask, are Moore, Wingo, and Mosley a top 5 wide receiver unit in the SEC?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure I've broken that down yet. They should be. They should be. Florida, if Eugene Wilson comes back as an NFL slot, if he comes back off his knee injury, I'm saying, J. Michael Sturdivant out of the portal, Alice Wilson is a stud, the freshman. I think they could be potentially. At LSU, the health of all their guys is Anderson, the OU transfer, who's, if he's healthy, is a first, second round pick level player. How's he
Baron Brown?
Barron Brown, is he going to catch the ball, or is Nussmeier going to get frustrated if he doesn't catch the ball? Talent-wise, LSU is going to have top 5 wide receivers. Alabama's got some really good guys coming back, with Ryan Williams being the best receiver in the SEC. And then Jeremy Bernard. They've got some – I think Texas is going to be right there. But I do think there's proving grounds for all these wide receivers.
I agree. I think that right now you got to see what they do.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to be top 5. I would definitely say they're going to be top 7 or 8, but they could go as high as 1 and as low as 8. It's going to be about how they prove it themselves.
All right, guys, our next question, it's actually more of a comment from Dave Ashley, and he says, Bobby Watson was a freshman All-American in the ACC. Brevard lined up across Big Ten offensive line. It's the existing defensive line players for Texas that I'm more concerned about than the newcomers.
Well, there's only one existing, and that's Alex January. Melvin Hills did not play a snap. So the vast majority of guys that are going to play defensive tackle for Texas next year did not take a snap in the SEC. I worry more about, look, Cole Brevard signed with Penn State, played a lot at Purdue, but he was still at Purdue. Let's see what he does when that ratchets up a little bit. Let's see what Murad Watson, he's still in the ACC. Okay, I'm not trying to diminish those conferences, but it's different. Now he had a great second half of the season at Syracuse. I want to put that into play because that's especially important for a true freshman, in my opinion. But we'll see. I don't think you're wrong, Dave. But there's just not at defensive line. There's nobody other than Alex January at Texas, other than the true freshmen that are Josiah Sharman and Myron Charles, and they didn't play at all last year, obviously, because they weren't on campus.
I think that another part on D-line is Travis Shaw, Levon Johnson, rotational guys. What's their health?
Yeah. Hero Canoe, is he gonna be more than a 10 play a game guy?
Yeah.
All right, Bobby, before we move on, I'm going to let you tell everyone about one of your other favorite products, Ridge Wallet. I even got mine right here.
I tell you what, and I've had several people actually come up to me when I was down in Austin and tell me that they love Ridge Wallet. If you haven't bought one or haven't used one, it is tremendous. If you're still carrying around the bulky, overstuffed, and let's be honest, crusty leather wallet, it's time for an upgrade. Meet Ridge Wallet, the sleek, minimalist wallet that's changing the game. Ridge wallets are extremely thin, yet can securely hold up to 12 credit cards plus cash without adding unnecessary bulk. Made from premium, high-performance materials like carbon fiber, titanium, and stainless steel, Ridge wallets are built to last. In fact, they come with a lifetime warranty, meaning this is the last wallet you will ever need to buy. And it's not just about looks. Sitting on a bulky wallet tilts your pelvis, misaligns your spine, and can lead to chronic lower back pain. A slimmer Ridge wallet helps keep your posture balanced and your back pain-free. Plus, every Ridge wallet comes with RFID blocking technology to protect you from digital pickpockets. That's right. Scammers can now scan your pockets and steal your credit card info wirelessly. Ridge has you covered. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting 10% off your entire order when you use code ONTEXAS. That's 10% off when you use promo code ONTEXAS at ridge.com/ONTEXAS. Ridge is having a once-a-year anniversary sale. Get up to 40% off at ridge/ONTEXAS. Just head to ridge.com to see their biggest sale of the year. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Thank you.
Yes, too broke. George Costanza should read a Ridge Wallet ad. That'd be good.
All right, we have a super chat from David Parcell. Thank you, David. Would Vince Young survive this SEC?
Did Cam Newton? Come on.
Yeah, he would be the same star he was.
He's a freak.
Yeah.
No offense, but yeah, I'm not one of those that Jerry, did you hear that stat that Rod spit out last night in our live stream? He said that the average scramble,
in the NFL,
positive scramble by a quarterback these days is longer than a quarterback's average completion yard.
Wow.
So if a quarterback truly scrambles, and makes yardage, it is longer than a completed pass these days. So when you think about Jalen Hurts or Jaden Daniels or even a Patrick Mahomes and his scrambling ability, I mean, I go back to what Vince Young did better than anybody I've ever seen. I mean,
here's the follow-up. Here's the question from Buck Travis. Would VY be better in this era than 20 years ago? I say yes. I actually say yes. Because look,
in the NFL, Jerry.
Right. But I think it's different times. Like he would have started quarterback training at an earlier age, right? He'd have been farther along as a quarterback because somebody would have seen that talent, J.P. Tillman in Houston, who trains DJ Lagway and Trey Owens and Kavian Bryant, 27. Somebody would have grabbed him, said, come work with me, man. Like that would have progressed him as a quarterback more from the passing standpoint where it just wasn't skill, just not Sandlot skill in high school with him. And I think he'd been farther along.
I think that's fair, but I also think that the number of NFL teams now that focus on allowing a player's legs to work for them. I mean, it was taboo to have a running quarterback in the NFL in the early 2000s. That's not true anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Fisher couldn't get over himself about it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I was talking more college, by the way.
Yeah, maybe if he like then I will say this, Vince wasn't really in a place that he could have had those kind of early interactions with a guy like JP Tillman.
Yeah. That's why I said JP would have just gone there. Some people would have seen the talent and said, hey, I'll meet you. Let's just go to work. And it wouldn't have been a here's $100 for a session type scenario. They would have said, yeah, this guy's extremely talented. Just come work with my group of guys, man.
Yeah, that's fair. I see what you're saying.
But the NFL whole thing with the NFL is, man, you got to have the right people around. And I mean, in agents, all that, you got to have the right people around you, and then you got to go do it. I'm not sure that would have changed.
Fair.
Mike Goslow with the super chat this morning. Thank you, Mike. He says, Bobby, Jerry, who was the best recruit you've ever seen in person?
Just talked about him.
Well, mine's mine's different because I did basketball and football.
Oh,
and I went to AAU. I mean, I went to a New Orleans AAU tournament when Russ Springman was at Texas and said, "I'm recruiting this guy from Maryland." Russ Springman, for the all that don't know, was the lead recruiter of Kevin Durant, DJ Augustine, Damian James, those guys. He was like, "I'm recruiting this guy from Maryland that I think is the best player in the country. Everybody has Greg Oden ranked number 1 in the country." And I knew the name Kevin Durant, but I drove to New Orleans to watch him and said, that's different. I also saw LeBron James playing an AAU tournament, Clear Lake High School. So if you do basketball and football, I mean, like that's I just kind of came through at a time when I just saw 2 of the top basketball players that have ever lived. So now LeBron obviously went pro, but
Shaq. I saw Shaq at the
state tournament.
Yeah. I would, I'm just going back. I mean, I've seen Hall of Famers in their high school careers. I mean, Peyton Manning I saw back in the day. I just go back and through the list of guys. I mean, name a running back that's in the Hall of Fame. I think I saw him in person. It's crazy.
And I was just trying to think from a football perspective. VY, Adrian Peterson are just special. Jadeveon Clowney in high school was unbelievable talent. Yeah. I've still never seen a first 2 or 3 steps at that size that were that explosive. He was just different. Through the ESPN Under Armour days, I mean, going to STA, seeing the Bosas. I mean, Joey Bosa was run through the brick wall talent, just tell him what to do, he'd do it. Nick Bosa had a different component. They were like totally different. The way Nick Bosa was wired is how I wish Jadeveon Clowney would have been wired. So, I mean, seeing the Bosas back in those times, I mean, it's been fun. But, I mean, anytime you see LeBron James in high school, I mean, it's like that's like a top 3 guy to ever play. I actually saw Kobe at an AAU tournament too, which was now they weren't really recruits because they were going pro, but I saw Kobe at an AAU tournament in Las Vegas, and that was a little different too.
And let's see here. We got a lot of Vince-related talk and going back about 20 years ago talk. Let's take this one from Woodcrest. Does Texas get 1 to 2 more championships if Adrian Peterson came to Texas?
Well, they wouldn't have probably lost to OU that year.
Yeah. Yeah. So that may be one.
Yeah.
But him and Benson would have been on the same team, right, Bobby?
I mean, look, I mean, Cedric Benson and Jamal Charles. I mean, Jamal wouldn't have been there. And that's the year that, I mean, 05 is the year that Texas won the national championship. So and Adrian Peterson was at OU that year, right? So I don't know that they would have won more than that. I think Texas was so talented at almost every position at that period. I don't know that there's a single player that would have lifted them to 2 more championships. And you also had Vince Young at quarterback. I mean, look, Jamal Charles was a great run. I mean, he's a great running back.
What I've always said about the AD timing, zone read with Vince Young and AD, USC would have got blown out.
Yeah, maybe
USC would have got their ass kicked if Texas had VY running zone read with Adrian Peterson. Colorado might have lost 90-3. I mean, that's like how. I mean, literally, a guy rushed for 2,000 yards as a freshman in college football. You put him with Vince Young and run zone read, everybody else could have packed it in, man. Somebody asked if I saw Dwight, because now people are asking if I saw Dwight Howard. Here's the funny thing about that. That same AAU tournament, LeBron, even though he's from Cleveland, was playing with the Oakland Soldiers. Randolph Childress and Dwight Howard were on the Atlanta Celtics. I didn't even know who Dwight Howard was. I was like, man, I was watching the warm-ups. Those 2 dudes they look unbelievable. And then when the game started, LeBron was on a different level. Like, even than those guys, it wasn't even close. Like, LeBron was like kept rising above the rim, and then he just popped it on him, threw down on him. There were kids in the crowd. LeBron can't shoot. And he makes 4 threes in a row and stares at him and it was a different level thing. He made Dwight Howard look like 3 stars in that game. Okay. And he wasn't. He was a lottery pick. LeBron's one of the all-time freaks I've ever seen in person, just because of his size, explosivity, combination, and the attitude with which he played. You're, as a 17-year-old kid, you're like, that's different stuff. It's probably like what Dion was, Bo Jackson was. I mean, it's that level talent.
And let's see here, Jerry. One follow-up to some basketball. Champ Bailey talking about Kevin Durant. Where would you like to see him next? San Antonio and Houston both being mentioned for him.
Well, my kid grew up in Florida, and for his mental mindset, the Heat.
All right. Let's see. Let's switch gears, fellas. We've had some people talking about OU. So Rob wants to know, how many more games left for Venables? Does he survive this year?
Boy, that is the question. Frankly, I mean, that, if you brought up their schedule,
Working on it.
Yeah, I think that I think they've got to win 8 for him to keep his job. I think they've got to win 8. They go 6 or 7 wins. I don't see people having the faith that he's the guy. And if for whatever reason John Mateer is not the guy that they're hoping he is, they're not going to win 8. Now, if he is that guy, they could win 8. I mean,
and look, the reality is, I don't know what Oklahoma fans would say to this. We have some in the chat from time to time. But if he goes 8-4 off this schedule, he deserves to get another year. This is a brutally tough schedule. If you go 8, if the expectation is, you have to make the playoffs, I mean, this is a tough schedule. If you go 8-4 off this schedule, you should get another year, in my opinion.
I think they should be 5-0 headed into Texas.
Yeah, if he loses to Auburn at home against Jackson Arnold, he's probably toasty.
Or Michigan at home. I mean, who's Michigan got?
Yeah, the one thing he can't do is lose to Jackson Arnold in his own stadium.
Oh, that would be crude. That would be
the death nail, because look, you told Dylan Gabriel to take a hike, so Arnold didn't transfer. You went with him, then you bench him, and then he transfers. If he comes back and beats you, there's gonna be for sale signs out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Sneaky hard game at South Carolina.
Hey, bring that back up. Bring that back up.
Sorry.
No, so think about this. After the first 5 games, just think about this. They have Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, the Austin Simmons kid who Kiffin's very high on. I don't know what Tennessee's got. But at Tennessee, at Alabama, then Missouri, then Nussmeier. So they have tough road games against talented teams, and then they have really good quarterbacks on the teams that aren't the road games, and South Carolina is a road game with Lenora Sellers. I mean, their schedule has really good quarterbacks and really good tough road games. That's a tough schedule, man.
You think LSU's gonna? You think Nussmeier makes it through the whole year healthy? Fair question, right?
Yeah, they lost 4 starting OLs. If their OL comes through for them, they're going to be pretty good, because they did well in the portal on off, and I'm saying good on offense. Caden Durham, Harlem Berries, Jets.
Yeah. LSU Clemson is the starter. Is that the second best game outside of Texas Ohio State on that day?
Oh, for sure. And I think that's a huge game for Brian Kelly. One, he's going to be doing this, pounding the table if he loses again. But that's like such a tone setting game. And it's a huge game for Clemson too. Now, because Clemson's going to be ranked top 5, right? And there's a hype going into Clemson this year that wasn't the last couple of years to the same level. That's a huge game. If LSU goes into Clemson and wins, then suddenly the fans are going to start rallying a little bit behind Kelly. If Kelly goes to Clemson and loses by 2 touchdowns, those fans are going to hate his guts, and then you have to go play the rest of that schedule. So that's a big game for LSU. And Blake Baker's a good D coordinator, but he had so many guys coming out of the portal. What are they going to look like game 1 against a really good offense? That's a big game early in the season, and outside of Texas Ohio State, it is the game.
Hey, we'll come back to that here in just a second, because we have a couple of follow-up questions. But first, Bobby, if you would tell everyone about John Donovan one last time.
Yeah, I sure will. Thanks to John and his group over at Longhorn Wealth Management. They've been sponsoring us now for almost 2 years total. We appreciate him very, very much. As a proud UT alum, John served 15 years as a Dallas, Texas Exes chapter board member, and is now helping lead the build out of the Collin County, Texas Exes chapter. If you live in Collin County and want to get involved, just shoot John an email and he will get you added to the chapter email list for all upcoming events. This past weekend brought in the second wave of official visits for football recruits at UT, with another 14 super talented recruits making it to campus. So look, with the first official visit weekend already landing 5 new verbal commitments last week, the expectations are high for more this week. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. For a free 90-minute private consultation to learn how working with a certified financial planner like John can help you build and manage your own financial future and discover how you can truly maximize your wealth, minimize your taxes, and ensure your legacy with John's help, take advantage of a free 90-minute consultation. Call John and his team, 972-707-4900, or go online at www.longhornwealth.net to schedule your meeting today. Hook 'em from John Donovan and his team at Longhorn Wealth Management.
A question there. Dave actually asked, when does Elite 11 start? The finals of that, for those that followed, I'm not a big one of those guys. It starts June 17th. It goes to the 19th out in SoCal. Diabell is one of those guys from the state of Texas. Bo Bentley made it to the finals. Jake Fett, Arizona State commit out of El Paso Del Val, is there. Keyshawn Henderson, the Houston commit, is there from the state of Texas. SEC commits there are obviously Diabell, Texas, Brandon Faison, Tennessee, the kid from Utah going to A&M, then Will Griffin out of Tampa Jesuit going to Florida. Those are your SEC commitments in it as well for the Elite 11 finals. And then the guy that Texas took Diabell over, Troy Hune out of Penn State, that's a home game for him out of Mission Hills. The Penn State commitment, he's in it as well. So a couple of it'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But that's 17th through 19th for guys that like to follow that. Again, I'm not necessarily one of those guys. I've covered it a few times, but it starts the 17th, goes through the 19th. Manning Passing Academy is June 26th through 29th.
All right, we got another super chat this morning. This one from Tango Lima Foxtrot. Thank you for your super chat. It says, why is men's track and field down when you consider the talent in the state of Texas?
I don't know enough about track and field to be honest with you. I mean, I really don't. I don't know about Coach Floreal, and I know a little bit of his history, but I don't know enough to tell you, well, they didn't recruit this position or whatever. I will say a 34th place finish seems very out of place for the University of Texas in track and field, like very. So what needs to be rectified there, I'm not sure. Look, track and field, if there's one sport that is more recruiting than any other, I'd like to hear it. But we'll see what happens. I don't know. I think this is their lowest finish like ever with him as coach. So he's actually done well previously. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, Georgia kind of cleaned up in men's sprints in recruiting this year, including a kid from Duncanville.
And as I said, we did have a couple of LSU-related questions going back to that schedule, like from Seth here. He says, how many games does Brian Kelly have to win to stay?
Well, I think he has to win 10.
Or get to the playoff at 9-3.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you now, natives are restless, and they should be. I mean, look who he had at quarterback and at wide receiver at the same time, and didn't even get to the SEC championship game. I mean, Jaden Daniels and those receivers are legit. Didn't even get this. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. He took too long. He made bad hires on defense, and we'll see if he turns it around this year. They have the firepower. Jerry mentioned what they did on defense in the portal, and I think would they take FSU's best pass rusher?
Patrick Payton. Yeah. They did well in the portal. It's on Blake Baker to pull it all together as quick as possible because, like I said, they have a tough opener on the road at Clemson, and I'll say this: his buyout's $62 million. So these colleges, Lincoln Riley's is 90-ish, something dumb, 80-ish. So how many of these? I know the TV money, and I know what they're getting. We know that all of the numbers have been publicized, what the SEC team's getting every year, but that is a massive buyout. When you're going to have to pay the next guy $10 million a year or 11 to attract the coach you want, plus his staff, plus the buyout of the current staff. 8-4 might get him another year in that scenario.
Jeez.
I need a $63 million buyout. That's like Jimbo Fisher level.
That's crazy.
Bobby, could you LSU, if he goes 8-4, are they really going to fire him with a $60 million buyout? Plus the buyout of the assistants, then you're going to have to buy out a coach you want. and that's going to come with a tag. Then you're going to have to pay that guy $11 million because he's probably making 8 or 9 where he's at. That's a massive investment LSU will have to make if they fire him this year.
That is insane. I didn't realize it was that much.
Scott Woodward at work, AD at LSU. He's the one that got Jimbo Fisher to A&M. I don't know that he signed the final contract for Jimbo at A&M. I think that was actually Ross Bjork because they were worried that Scott Woodward would poach Jimbo Fisher from A&M to LSU. My hat's off to Jimmy Sexton.
Yes.
The agent for all these dudes, because how he's, he basically holds these universities hostage.
Yes.
So, any opportunity that's his job. So I don't, begrudge him. It's just, holy cow. The numbers are astronomical. But hey, we can pay Brian Kelly $11 million, but the whole football team can only make 16. That's not the way it works in the NFL for a reason.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Well, we will close on this super chat from DJ. Thank you, DJ. And he wants to talk freshman receivers for a moment. Between French and Lockett, who will have a better or bigger impact this season?
I would say starting the season, French is ahead. Lockett is such a body control, long arm, but he was young too as a senior age-wise. And like I said, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, and he looks like he's put on about 10 pounds of lower body weight. The upper body will take more time to catch up as he fills out his frame. But he was a guy that you wanted to throw more verticals to in high school, and obviously we've known his coach a long time, great dude. But you wanted to use him where you would use where at his greatest strength in high school. So I think there's a difference in, kind of how they were used in high school. I think Jamie French is a little farther along in the nuances of the position. Jamie French also played with a Florida signee at quarterback, or an FSU signee. I can't remember where Tramel Jones ended up. I think he flipped to Florida, didn't he? So he played with a Power 4 level quarterback his whole way through high school. Obviously, Tramel got hurt his senior year, but they had a freshman who's a stud over there. I saw him this year. They got another kid at Mandarin who's a Power 4 guy, easy. So Jamie also played with that high level quarterback, which I think helps as well. I think Jamie's ahead, so I would say Jamie right now.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football, presented by John Donovan and Longhorn Wealth Management Group. Want to thank John, along with Omaha Steaks and Ridge Wallet, all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. Bobby, what can people expect later today?
Rod and CJ and Coach Shipley going to be on at the winning drive around 3:15, and Jerry and I will be back, and it'll be mostly just recruiting talk at around 7 o'clock, 7:15. If you're interested, get your questions in, and we'll be there. Jeff and CJ may have another update today around noon on recruiting as well. So check us out. Also, make sure you subscribe to ontexasfootball.com. We can't be on here each and every minute. Become an OG by subscribing to ontexasfootball.com. It's $39.95 a year. That's $20 off the regular subscription price for first-time users only. Again, on TexasFootball.com, Jerry, CJ, myself, Jeff Howe, Blake, you'll be posting on there. Anytime we hear recruiting news, we post it and you get that recent update.
And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We would appreciate that. Appreciate your support. Ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content. And between that and on TexasFootball.com, we got you covered around the clock. And, of course, we'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. So for Bobby Burt, Gary Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.